We've had an amazing turnout tonight, Graham, for the film. It was, the room's been packed about 3 times the amount that Fel, who organised the film, thought would have turned up. And there had been such a strong emotional feeling in the room, listening to the film. I could hear the expression of people's emotion as they listened to the film. So, newch chi cyntaf, would you first please say what you would like to say, and then Clive will speak afterwards.
Well, I'm very pleased that there's such a good turnout tonight. We've seen the film, and now we are witnessing the results. Genocide in Gaza, ethnic cleansing, threats to push hundreds of thousands into the Sinai Desert to eliminate not just Hamas, but the very existence of Palestinian life in the area. Palestine could now be facing a second Nakba, while Western governments cheer on the sidelines. Gaza, the largest open-air prison in the world, is now a graveyard, a children's graveyard. Already 300,000 displaced, almost 10,000 Gazan people dead, many thousands of them children, houses, hospitals demolished, refugee camps bombed, schools attacked, amputations, vinegar being used as anaesthetic, the area devastated. And Israel is just getting started, while the world's governments, with a few exceptions, look on. And the Western governments, our government and our Labour Party, actively supporting and colluding with this ongoing ethnic cleansing. Yes, Gaza is a graveyard, not just for children, but a graveyard for any concept of international law, for the remnants of official Western morality. And in the West Bank, no Hamas there, just in the last month, hundreds killed and houses demolished. And this is what the events in this film were all about and where it has led. It was a lie that the left, in particular in the Labour Party, was overrun with anti-Semites. And it was aimed at this, firstly, destroying Jeremy Corbyn's leadership of the Labour Party, ensuring he was never Prime Minister, a Prime Minister and a leader of the Labour Party who would have spoken with a fundamentally different voice on Palestine and on so many other issues. It was aimed at destroying the membership of the Labour Party and at ensuring the establishment spoke with one voice when it mattered, which is now. The political weapon now being used to delegitimize and attempt to crush any expression of solidarity with the Palestinians in the West, and to crush our freedom to speak out, protest, and organize. This is so dangerous. It is dangerous for Muslims on the front line in Britain and Europe, as well as, of course, in Palestine, in Gaza, the West Bank. For Jews too, and I speak as the political officer of Jewish Voice for Labour, for Jews too being used in this proxy war, I hope I speak in the best traditions of Jewish internationalism and universalism when I say not in our name. And for the whole world, with this danger spreading into a global conflict, I think Palestine is the international issue of our epoch, just as South Africa was 2 generations ago. But with this difference, support for South Africa was largely confined to the Tories. For all his grievous crimes against the left, Neil Kinnock was no supporter of South African apartheid. He never descended to the depths of Starmer's obscene support for Israeli apartheid, nor that of his co-thinkers on Labour's current front bench and in the Parliamentary Labour Party. What a contrast with the positions of support for Palestine adopted by Labour Party conferences, totally ignored by the leadership. The witch hunt was and is class war by the establishment's representative in the party, that is the majority of the Parliamentary Labour Party and the party officials. And it is in danger of becoming race war, support for Israel morphing into support for white supremacy, support for Gazans, for Palestine, portrayed as anti-Semitism, and a dog whistle for the most appalling anti-Muslim and anti-Black racism. Are the millions on the streets for Palestine all anti-Semites, Are the Jews demonstrating for Palestine in London, Washington, New York, Canada, throughout the world? Are they all anti-Semites? But the clampdowns on freedom of speech and attempts to dehistoricize, to decontextualize the events of October 7th are just not working. The millions throughout the world marching for Palestine understand very well history did not begin on October 7th, and it clearly hasn't ended there. Now, of course, we celebrate the mass breakout from the open-air prison on October 7th, an important blow against the myth of Israeli invincibility. But at the same time, we detest violence and human suffering, and we should mourn the victims on both sides. I'm no cheerleader, and I'm sure none of us are cheerleaders for Hamas. Now, what is Hamas? Both at the same time, they are reactionary Islamists and at the same time an important part of the resistance. Let's leave aside clear evidence that a minority of those murdered were killed by the Israeli army itself. The key point is that history didn't start on October 7th, but more than 100 years before. Israel is a state based on ethnic cleansing and the displacement of the indigenous population. It is an apartheid state based on settler colonialism in alliance with Western imperialism. That is the root cause of all these atrocities. What is remarkable has been the forbearance of the Palestinians, and that the events of October 7th have not occurred more often. So of course I mourn all those victims murdered and maimed, Israeli, Jewish and Palestinian alike, and I have most of my family living in Israel. But there is not an equivalence between the violence of the oppressed and the violence of the oppressor. Looking back in history, slave revolts have often been very bloody affairs. Look back at Haiti or the Turner Rebellion in the United States. As the great James Baldwin wrote, quotes, "People who have been wronged will attempt to right the wrong. They would not be people if they didn't. They can rarely afford to be scrupulous about the means they will use. They will use such means as come to hand." Or the words of Jean-Paul Sartre. He said, "After so many years that the neck of the occupied has been suffocating under your iron foot, and suddenly was given a chance to raise his eyes, what kind of gaze did you expect you would see there?" Yes, we should remember the Holocaust. And what an obscenity at the United Nations, Israeli representatives wearing the yellow star and proclaiming never again as their government carries out this genocide. The slogan never again must be never again for anybody. We're witnessing now a growing disconnect between the people of the world and the political establishments. We, fighting for global justice, are a growing force in the world, and we must ensure our voice is heard. No bureaucratic maneuvers, no witch hunts, no legislation will silence us. And I'll just end with the words of a Palestinian revolutionary who was assassinated by the Zionists, Caernarfon. He said, "The Palestinian cause is not a cause for Palestinians only, but a cause for every revolutionary, wherever he is, as a cause of the exploited and the masses in our era." Thank you, comrades.